In this video, we're going to be taking a look at SteamOS 3.8 running on the ROG Ally X, and this is the official SteamOS build. I actually installed this using the Steam Deck recovery image. It's not Bazzite, it's not another distro. This is true SteamOS directly from Valve, and when it comes to the Z1 Extreme APU in the ROG Ally X, this thing is putting down some really good performance, even at those lower TDPs, around 15 watts, and battery life here is absolutely amazing because after all, with the ROG Ally X, we've got an 80 watt-hour battery with this unit. And of course, with this more powerful APU, yeah, it is putting down better performance than the Steam Deck, even at 15 watts. So moving into the settings here, I wanted to show you that we're running true SteamOS. As you can see, we've got SteamOS Hollow, and this is actually SteamOS 3.8. Again, I installed this using the Steam Deck recovery image. I did have to update to the main branch beta just to get everything working here, and still, we're kind of running into an issue where we don't have any RGB control. And the front ROG buttons aren't working here, but Valve has recently stated that they'll be releasing a beta of SteamOS for more handhelds in the future. I just wanted to see if this would work, and yeah, it actually installs pretty easily. Of course, you could always install Bazzite on something like this, and that's kind of my personal favorite for the ROG Ally X. But moving into our performance menu, we do have VRR support here. It's a 120 Hz panel. And moving down to the TDP control, it is not listed. We're actually at 0, but out of the box, this will run at 18 watts. Now, I have found a way around this. Actually, using Decky and a plugin known as Simple TDP Control, we can go from 4 watts all the way up to 40 watts. So this was the only way I was able to kind of control the TDP here. And luckily, Simple TDP Control also has an ASUS option, so we've got full control over the GPU. Now, with the Z1 Extreme, I usually like running this at around 17 watts, but with a lot of this stuff, we're just going to run it at 15 to kind of match what the Steam Deck puts out. And from there, we can go on up. Around 20 watts will really open this thing up. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at some gameplay on this unit. I've also got some benchmarks that I wanted to face off against the Steam Deck with this running SteamOS 3.8. I'll move over to the built-in screen in just a bit, but to give you a closer look here, I did want to test out Cyberpunk 2077, just to kind of match how I run it on the Steam Deck. So we've got that Steam Deck preset here that does add a little bit of FSR. And I've gone to 800p, even though we've got a 16:9 aspect ratio display. And just to show you from Simple TDP, 15 watts. So we're going to be right there where the Steam Deck is. And taking a look, I mean, it actually performs pretty decently like this. We're not at 60, and there is frame gen that you could use if you really wanted to. But I'd say with something like this running the Z1 Extreme, the best way to get more performance would be taking that wattage up just a little bit. And when you're running this on the Steam Deck with that preset, it actually locks it down at 30. So I've unlocked the frame rate here just to kind of take it up a bit. Lowest I've seen it hit at 15 watts is around 36 FPS, which isn't bad, and that's with a lot of particle effects and explosions on screen. But again, the best way to get more performance out of the Z1 Extreme and the ROG Ally X is to take that wattage up. And now we're at a 20 watt TDP, but instead of running this at 800p, I've gone up to 900p, still using that Steam Deck preset. From our TDP control, we're at 20 watts now, so 1600 by 900, Steam Deck preset, 20 watts. We're getting over 60 FPS, and we're still going to see great battery life because it's got that 80 watt-hour battery. Just seeing what the Z1 Extreme can do right now, I'm actually really excited about the SteamOS version of the Legion Go S with the Z1 Extreme. It's up for pre-order right now along with the Z2 Go version, and I think the Z1 Extreme version is where it's going to be at. There's no doubt that Valve and Lenovo have done some optimizations with SteamOS specifically for that unit, so we might even see better performance. Now, we're not going to get the same kind of battery life because it's got a much smaller battery, but I do think people are going to have a lot of fun with that device. Next game I wanted to test was Spiderman 2. We're at low, and with any IGP with these lower wattages, FSR frame gen is kind of a must. So we've got that enabled here, but we're only at a 20 watt TDP. With it set up like this, it does perform really well. If you wanted to run this at a lower wattage, you'd have to drop the resolution down to 720. Or if you want to run this with no frame gen, 720 low FSR balanced at 28 watts will get you around 62 FPS on average. Next thing I wanted to do here was kind of a side-by-side of a few benchmarks with the Steam Deck OLED versus the ROG Ally X. Both of these devices are on SteamOS 3.8, and we're not using frame gen, which I thought was pretty impressive, even just for the Steam Deck over there. At the end, we had an average of 49 on the Steam Deck OLED, and on the ROG Ally X, 55. But one of the most interesting things that I saw here was total battery draw while running some of these. On average, at a 15-watt TDP, the ROG Ally X is actually drawing a little less than the Steam Deck OLED, screen brightness set to 50%. With the built-in benchmark for Shadow of the Tomb Raider, if you take a look at that total battery draw on the Steam Deck OLED, it does creep up to around 25 watts, while the ROG Ally X actually stays steady right there under 23. And by the end, on the Steam Deck OLED, we had an average of 58, on the Ally X, 64. The final side-by-side benchmark I wanted to run here was Cyberpunk 2077, and again, if you take a look at that total battery draw, the Steam Deck OLED is drawing around 1 more watt than the ROG Ally X, but if this was flip-flop, we'd still get better battery life over on the X because we've got a much larger battery over there. And this kind of rings true throughout with these higher-end games that kind of max out the CPU and GPU at any given wattage. We're at 15 right now, but when it comes to lower-end indie games, the Steam Deck still wins because it actually draws much less. In some cases, 3 to 4 watts less, and we'll take a look at that by the end of the video. But when it comes to Cyberpunk 2077, Steam Deck preset 720p, 15 watts, the Steam Deck OLED managed 44 FPS, the Ally X came in with an average of 53 FPS, and with all of these tests here at 15 watts, these aren't that far off from each other. But the main thing you got to keep in mind here is the ROG Ally X does feel a bit more happier at around 17 watts, and we've got a total TDP up to 40 watts with the Ally X, and unfortunately with the Steam Deck, we're right there at 15 watts. We really can't up that to get better performance like we can on the X. Moving over to some more game testing, we've got Kingdom Hearts 3, 1080p, medium settings, 15 watt TDP, and yeah, this runs well over 60. Another thing we could do here is just lock most of these games down at 60. It would save some battery, because right now we are using a little more GPU and CPU to get past that 60 mark. I mean, I've got an unlocked frame rate here, and this will run at 120 on the ROG Ally X, but you'll have to drop it down to 900p low. The next one we have here is The Witcher 3 900p Steam Deck preset 18 watt TDP, and I did bring it up just a bit because we're at 900p. If you want to run this at 720 or 800, I mean, I don't know why with a 16:9 aspect ratio display, 15 watts is going to work out. You can lock it right there at 60, but I upped it just a bit to get that higher resolution. Doom Eternal, low, 900p, 15 watt TDP, 100% resolution scale, and I knew we'd have a good time with this one. So even at 15 watts, we can run this over 60 at 900 on the Z1 Extreme. I always like to throw this one in because I personally love the game. Fallout 4, and when we run this inside of SteamOS, it's basically Fallout 4 for Steam Deck. We can't change the settings, and I did take this up to a 16 watt TDP because right there at 15, we had some dips, and even at 16, you'll see it drop down to around 58 every once in a while. Had to throw at least one fighting game in here. Street Fighter 6, 900p, medium, 15 watt TDP. And in Windows, I actually have to run this at a 17 watt TDP just to get up here at 900p. But it does look like with SteamOS, we can put it right there at 15 watts and still get 60 FPS. And the last game we're going to test here is Monster Hunter Wilds, and I knew we'd be hard-pressed to run this at 60. Locking this down at 45 is totally possible at 900p, but right now I'm at 720 low, frame gen on, 28 watt TDP. This is just one of those games that doesn't perform well on iGPUs, and it's definitely not Steam Deck verified. I'm not sure if it ever will be, but it would be nice to get a little better performance out of this, and I'm really hoping, fingers crossed, for some more optimizations from the developers. Last game I wanted to take a look at was Hades 2, and this is really just for battery draw. Over on the left hand side, we've got the Steam Deck OLED. On the right hand side, we've got the ROG Ally X. And if you take a look at our total battery draw, you can see that the Steam Deck OLED is much lower. We're at 50% brightness on the screen with both of these, so more optimizations definitely need to be had here. If we were able to get this down to where it is on the Steam Deck, we could get much more battery life out of the Ally X. Just a couple watts really makes a huge difference. So far, official SteamOS running on the ROG Ally X is looking really promising here, and I really can't wait until we get that official beta. This is something I really wanted to try, and yeah, I mean, it's working. We don't have those ROG buttons up front or the RGB working with this unit yet, but if you install something like Decky Loader and simple Decky TDP control, you can definitely get most everything that you need working on this with official SteamOS 3.8, and I'm sure higher is going to work out here. But I can't wait until we get that official SteamOS beta release from Valve. It's going to be really awesome on a lot of handhelds out there. And when it comes to pricing for the Ally X, I've seen a lot of these open box at Best Buy and even on eBay for a much lower price than, it's set at. This one here is $654. There's another one for $614. So yeah, you can get these a bit cheaper if you don't mind going with kind of an open boxed unit. And with this, we get that Ryzen Z1 Extreme, 8 cores, 16 threads with that 12 compute unit RDNA 3i GPU. And remember, the X actually has 24 gigabytes of RAM, so we can dedicate 8 for VRAM, and we've still got 16 for system memory. But with a super lightweight operating system like SteamOS, I mean, I wouldn't mind taking this up to 12 gigs of VRAM, leave the rest for system memory. It'll work out just fine. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. I will be keeping my eye out for that official beta from Valve. I really want to test that on some other handhelds and desktop PCs. But until then, yeah, I mean, you could definitely get official SteamOS up and running on the ROG Ally X. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments below. And like always, thanks for watching.